Friends, you're welcome to the second part of DNS tutorial. In first part, you studied about what are the DNS server and what are the different type of DNS queries. But here in this part, we will discuss about DNS zones and different resource records, and at last we will see that practically. First of all, let's discuss about DNS zones. Some people are confused about the domain name and DNS zones. So let me clear one thing. As you're watching in the picture, there is a domain microsoft.com. It has a subdomain example.microsoft.com also. So it has a single domain, but we can create multiple DNS zones over here. One DNS zone we can create microsoft.com, another zone we can create example.microsoft.com. Okay, so we can create a different DNS zones for different subdomains. There are different types of DNS zones, like it may be primary zone, secondary zone, stub zone, AD integrated zone. So let's discuss one by one all about it. First of all, primary zone. Primary zone is a master zone, or we can say it is a read-write copy of the zone. So all the changes, all the modification, all the configuration we do on DNS server, that we do on primary zone. While secondary zone is the is the read-only copy of the primary zone. So we can say if primary zone is a primary source of information about the zone, then secondary zone is the secondary source of information about the zone. Generally, second zone is used to share the load of primary zone. So we don't make any kind of changes to secondary zone. All the changes we implement on primary zone, that is implemented on secondary zone. Okay, so because secondary zone is a read-only copy of the primary zone, so secondary zone is not stored on Active Directory database. On Active Directory database, primary zone is stored. Then Stub Zone and AD integrated zone we will discuss in the next slide. First of all, Stub Zone. Stub Zone we can say is a source of information about the authoritative name server. So just like condition forwarder forward the query to any particular DNS, then Stub Zone forward the query to authoritative name server. So Stub Zone contains only that information which is required to locate the authoritative name server. So that information is just like your SOA record, name server record, host A record. So Stub Zone contains the copy of all these type of resource records. And just like in secondary zone, we don't need to make any changes to Stub Zone. So all the changes implemented on the master zone or the primary zone, those changes will be automatically updated on your Stub Zone also. Using this picture, you will be able to understand it properly. For example, at the bottom you are watching, there is a DNS server, and if it receives a query about na.fabricam.com, then the query does not directly reach to na.fabricam.com, but first of all the query will be forwarded to its forwarder. Then maybe this DNS server has also some another forwarder, so the query at last reaches to the authoritative name server. But if we have configured a Stub Zone properly, then what will happen, this will identify, this DNS server will identify that this server is authoritative for this zone. So by watching the Stub Zone, it will identify the authoritative name server and will forward the query directly to the authoritative name server. So all these intermediate steps are not required to be done. So using Stub Zone, the query resolution will be very fast. What is AD integrated zone? If we have a proper domain and there are different domain controllers in that, just like in picture you're watching, there are 3 domain controllers. So DNS is installed on all those domain controllers. Then what will happen, if we make any kind of changes to one DNS, we are modifying any resource record, we are creating some resource record. So if we are making any kind of changes to one DNS, then these changes will be implemented, will be replicated to all the DCs in the domain. So such kind of DNS where all the changes will be automatically implemented to the entire domain, then the zone is called AD integrated. In simple words, we can say if your DNS is not standalone, but it is the part of Active Directory database, then it is called AD integrated zone. In this last picture, it is just about the primary and secondary DNS server. So it has shown that if we are making any changes to primary DNS server, first of all we need to transfer the zone to secondary DNS server. However, that is done automatically, but if the changes are not implemented automatically and we want to do that forcefully, then we need to transfer zone from primary DNS server to secondary DNS server. Let's look about the lookup zones. There are two kinds of lookup zones we need to create in DNS. First one is forward lookup zone, second one is reverse lookup zone. So what is that all about? Forward lookup zone contains the resource records which are used to transfer resolve your alphabetical name to IP address. While reverse lookup zone just do the reverse of that. I mean it resolve IP address to the name. Fine. And let's discuss about one of the most important thing, that is resource record. What is that? First of all, SOA record. Actually, there are different kind of resource record we need to create in DNS. SOA, NS, A, MX, SRV. So there are different kinds of resource records. Let's discuss one by one. First of all, SOA record. SOA record simply contains the information about your primary name server. So all the required information about primary name server, it is used to store, just like your email address of the administrator, the serial number of the zone file. Generally, whenever we update or we modify any zone, then its serial number need to be updated so that we can come to know that it is modified so many times. Then refresh time interval, retry time interval, expire time interval, and minimum TTL. So this contains this kind of information. So SOA is simply the source of information and nothing more. Then NS record. What is NS record? Actually, by using that, by watching NS record, we can come to know that this DNS server is authoritative for which part of the domain, we can say. Actually, NS record contains the record about the zone. So if it has for example, it has the NS record on Microsoft.com, then by watching that we can come to know that this DNS server is authoritative for Microsoft.com. If it contains the NS record of example.microsoft.com, it means it is authoritative for example.microsoft.com zone only. Next one is A record or quad A record. A record, or generally we say host A record. What is that? It is used to map an alphabetical name to IP address. For example, we want to resolve google.com. What will be the IP address of google.com? So we should have created host A record for that. Only in that case we can resolve the name. So this is one of the most important record. Then what is difference between A record and quad A record? Actually, A record is used to map alphabetical name to IP version 4 address, while quad A record is used to map alphabetical name to IP version 6 address, and there is no other difference. What is CNAME record? Interesting. Actually, we can say these are the aliases records. What does it mean? Suppose we have some DNS name and we want to make change to the name of that. Means there is an old name and we have modified it to new name. So what will we do in host A record? We will map that new name to IP address. So all the DNS clients which will query for new name, that query will be resolved. But if there are some DNS clients which are using the old name, so what will be happen to those queries? That should also be resolved. So CNAME is the record which contains old alphabetical name and the new alphabetical name. So it's a map of old name to new name. So whenever the user query the old name, it is resolved to the new name, and using POSE record, that new name is resolved to the IP address. So in that way, the old name is also resolved to the new IP address. What is MX record? Generally, this is used in your Exchange server. We can say this is used to transfer your email to particular mailboxes. We can say these are just like your addresses to the mailboxes. What are SRV record? SRV record is used to locate any domain controller. It is used to locate any particular server. So if SRV record is not there or it is corrupted, then you will not be able to contact any of the DCs in your domain. So if you want to contact any DC in terms of you are making any for that, you are joining any computer to the domain, or you are creating additional domain controller, you are creating read-only domain controller. So all these will not be happen if your SRV record is not proper, because if domain controller will not be located, then you will not be able to make any of these kind of configurations. So even if this is corrupted, we have some options, we can repair it. Very simple is that if we restart net logon service, it is repaired automatically. We can use some other commands also, like DCDR. We can use netdr tool. So using that, we can repair SRV record. Anyway, come to the pointer record. Pointer record are just opposite to your host A record. It means pointer record are used to map or resolve IP address to the name. It is generally used in some kind of troubleshooting services like tracert and NS lookup. So whenever we use them, then IP address is used to resolve into name. So pointer record is used for that. TXT record. TXT record doesn't do anything directly, but these are simply, we can say, if you want to store some additional information about any resource record, then we can store that information into TXT record. So let's come to the practical part. Let's see how can we create a zone, how can we create a forward or reverse lookup zone, how can we create resource records. So for that, I'm going to server machine. I'm starting DNS, then tools, DNS. So this is DNS. Here you're watching some primary zone are already created over here. I'm not saying, I don't know whether it is primary or not, but some zones are already created. Apple and orange.com. So if we have to create any new zone, what we need to do, we right click here on the forward lookup zone, we create a new zone, and what we need to do is click on next, and which type of zone we want to create. We want to create a primary zone, secondary zone, and stub zone. So whatever the zone we want to create, we select it. If we are creating a secondary zone, it will ask for the primary zone, because even not only in secondary zone, if we create a secondary zone or stub zone, it asks for primary zone, because both these zones takes information from the primary zone. So here I am creating a primary zone. Next. So it is asking that whether you want a proper application to all the DCs in the domain. Yes, of course I want. Next. So what the name is like I'm creating a zone by name grabs.com. Next, you want dynamic update, I will discuss about it later. I want both secure and non-secure dynamic update. Next, finish. You're watching here, this is a newly created zone, that is grabs.com. Now we can create some resource records over here. For example, we need to create host A record. What we need to do, we right click over here on the blank space anywhere, it will show a list. We can select host A record, CNAME record, IMAX record. So whatever the kind of record we want, we can create it. For example, I'm creating a host A record. I'm clicking here and I'm typing the name, like I'm typing here Delhi. So delhi.grabs.com. What IP address I want? 10.0.0.4 suppose. So here is an option like we want to create a pointer record automatically with this or not. So it's up to us whether we want to create that or not. Okay, so I'm not creating it. Add host. It is successfully created. So you have created the host A record. Fine. So now whenever the query will be about delhi.grabs.com, this DNS server will resolve that query to 10.0.0.4. Okay, and in the same way we can create any other record. For example, I want to create txt record, but that is not in the list. So for that I need to go other new records. I can create CNAME over here, or I want txt records, so I will go over there. So this is txt, text record. So I'm creating by using this button. What I'm doing here, I'm giving the name, for example, Mumbai. Okay, or any existing resource record, for example Delhi, and I want to give any information about this delhi.grabs.com. So I can write any of the information about this resource record, like this record will resolve to Delhi server IP address. Fine. So any kind of information you want, we can give over here. So this was the way to create any resource record. Fine. This is reverse lookup zone, and using that also we can create any pointer record over here. Like I'm right clicking here and I can create a pointer record. Fine. So it is very simple to create any of the resource record. So that's all of the session. I hope it will be interesting to you. If you have any suggestion, please send me. Thank you.